Welcome to today's show, which is about celebrating the goddess vibration and stepping forward in this vibration now as the Omega energy seems to be coming forward to harmonize with the Alpha energy and to bring that perfect union in balance into our world here as a collective and as individuals. I'm seeing a major shift that's occurred as we enter 2011, and I'm excited about that because I've been waiting, ready to move forward. And I think a lot of people are feeling this sudden freedom to move forward and to step into their positions with the open heart and to be of service to the world. At the same time, I'm hearing people speak about the shadow sides coming up and having to go deep inward to experience some of those suppressed emotions. Again, this is another reflection of us moving forward into this harmonic union between the Alpha and the Omega energy here on Earth. Let me just take a moment, person to person, to explain what I mean by that on a sort of practical level here. What I mean by that is that if we look back in history, we have been moving through many centuries with a very masculine based vibration. This is not about a war between men and women. In fact, this is about an energy, alpha energy, the linear mind thinking. The vibration of the linear mind is often associated with the male vibration or the God energy. And it's beautiful, and in its most empowered state, it's wisdom, pure wisdom. And the Omega energy is represented by a more circular vibration, usually associated with a feminine vibration, though again, I am not speaking about male versus female in the physical form. I'm speaking about a centered space within each of us in which we represent both the mind and the heart, the male and the female. So the heart center way of being embraces the full emotional spectrum that we have here to experience on Earth. And many of you know that my dear sister is Magdalene, Mary Magdalene, and we have been working very closely together through the spirit world for many years now. And it's very clear that throughout a lot of the religions that we now witness and practice here. Mary Magdalene loves to play with words, and I have to tell you that as soon as I said practice, she gave me a little smirk and said, yeah, that's what they're doing, practicing. So we're practicing, just like we would be practicing an instrument. If we were trying to master an instrument, we're practicing our ability to live in oneness and to remember who we are in the truth of divine love. And throughout history over the past few centuries, that has been dominated by the mind energy. And the result of that is the world that we're seeing. Now, one of the things that Magdalene is constantly reassuring me when I get into my human frustration about the way things are is that they are all perfect. And that, in fact, it was always meant to be that the male vibration, the linear mind-centered vibration, move forward, and that storyline out of many of the prophecies and prophets and stories that were brought to us in the past, the male vibration, the linear thinking, was the one that stayed in the focus, and the female side of it. So we see in a lot of historical teachings that the female side of the story got suppressed, even buried underground. And at the same time, we were suppressing our emotions, burying them under our mind, our thoughts, our practical way of being, and separating ourselves from the two. And so what Magdalene says is that this gave us an opportunity to really, really explore that beauty And I know sometimes we look at some of the frustrating things today, and that's because of the lack of harmony between the two. When you separate out and dissect anything, it's going to have a limited reaction, chain reaction. So we're looking at some of the frustrations of being dominated by one side versus the other. But in reality, the fact that we had this opportunity to explore our mind to such depth allowed us to expand ourselves in so many ways, in many beautiful ways. We can look at the internet. We are learning to move beyond time and space in very practical, physical ways, which is, beautiful things have occurred over these past few centuries. And what Magdalene is constantly reassuring me is that this is the way it was meant to be. It's like putting this under a microscope so we could examine this side. And what we've seen over the past decade is a mastery of that, because it's come full circle to the point where very beautiful spiritual leaders who are based or who originated in their thinking, have linked for us science and spirituality. And that link is actually a completion of that phase of our exploration here on Earth, so that we are now free to bring forth with more harmonic balance the female side, to rise that up from the suppression of the storylines that we've seen in so many religions. I'm not picking any one. And even if we go beyond what we call religions, just history in itself has been suppressing that. So now is the time. And in the first channeling that I brought to you at the beginning of this new year with Magdalene, I, having worked with her for many years, felt a shift in it. And I'm sure many of you could feel the strength and the excitement in her voice. I'm actually feeling that in many areas of my life, as we are looking now at a lot of instant manifestation and a sense that things that have been on hold, waiting for the world to be ready, the vibrational world to be ready, are now being set free to step forward. So what we're seeing in the world now is the heart center stepping forward. And one of the beautiful things that I've noticed in the past, I've noticed it in the past couple of months. I'm sure that internally this has happened much longer. But even a lot of the spiritual leaders who came from a scientific mind are moving now into the heart-centered approach. They're taking that now one step further and talking about channeling in the divine vibration. They're talking about emotions and heart-centered ways of being, and needing to add love to the equation in order to have the fullness of what we would like to experience in our remembrance of oneness here on Earth. So as this is occurring, there's now a new freedom for the people who are here to serve from a heart-based center to step out into the world and to support others. Now, on an individual level, because everything happens for us individually, and that really is the most important piece, we can only really focus on our own being and let that be a reflection to the world of what we would like to witness and co-create in the world. So when we bring this down to the individual, what we're seeing, and I think that this is why so many people are also speaking about this sort of shadow sides coming up in as we've entered this new phase. And I have to say, I really do not believe that the spiritual energies are based on the calendar year, but for me, it was almost instantaneous to midnight of 2010 into 2011 that this shift seemed to be like, let's go. So what we're seeing now on an individual level is that people who have, and we all have to some degree, living in this world, suppressed our emotions. So it's a time now to go deep into the emotional expression of our being. And this is why some people are speaking of the shadow work, needing to go in and to purge out some of the emotions that weren't felt over the past several years of suppressing them, or several lifetimes perhaps. So as we support you in that, I would just like to say that yes, there is a purging phase, but it can be wrapped in divine love, and the spirit world is here to support us. So just because you have maybe 16 lifetimes of suppressed emotion, and I'm playing with you a little bit, it could be that, it could be just 6 years. But no matter how much you've suppressed your emotions, and I know I went through that phase even in this lifetime, in my late teen years, early 20s, I just was really tired of being an emotional being in a mind-based world, or a non-emotional world, and that feeling out of control to me a little bit. I spent several years suppressing them, and when it was time to open up, because that way just didn't work for me, there was a sense of purging that occurred for a little while. And the most important thing about that is, if you've suppressed emotions over the years, when it's time to purge, it doesn't mean you actually have to go back and relive the intensity of emotions that were suppressed, because spirit is here to wrap you in divine grace and move you forward. And this is why tools like the guided meditation, prayer, surrender, dream work, all of these things, even exercise, just letting yourself move it out through exercise, can be supportive. But don't feel like you're alone in this process, because the divine goddesses that have been holding this space for us are stepping forward in a way that they never have. And they're here to support the males and the females in moving into a more harmonic and balanced state. And there's a pendulum effect that can occur here. And so you may feel a period of time where your emotions feel a little bit out of control as you move into this new phase of bringing your goddess and God energies into harmony. But they will settle into a harmonic union. And this is when our mind and our heart come together as one. It's not about now moving into centuries of the goddess vibration dominating. And the word dominating actually tends to be more associated with a linear thought pattern. And so this is about us coming together in this balanced harmony of love and wisdom, and as individuals, and then representing that to the world. I know a lot of you have already done this work, and you're just merely going through another phase of that as we clear ourselves out and prepare for all the beauty that's coming in during this year. Now, the other piece of this is that some of you are now, having done that within yourself, holding a very steady space and being willing to hold that as a collective. So one of the shifts that we're seeing here now in 2011 is that the collective is ready to make this shift. And I've told you before that as we reach 2012, a lot of people have speculation about what 2012 is about. And to me, it's always been shown as a tipping point, as the point where enough of the mass population has opened to the union of the God and the goddess within them, of the male and the female, of the heart and the mind within them, and found a harmonic balance to that, that they can hold the space now so that there is no turning back, that our world will actually move without resistance in that direction. And that doesn't mean that half of the population or more than half of the population has to reach that state by 2012. What it means is a certain percentage that tips the scale, so to say, because it's much harder to reach that in the beginning of it, when it's not supported by the universe. It has been for those of you who have gone ahead and done a lot of that work. What we're seeing now is that I would say we've even probably reached that tipping point, and that's what we're feeling, because the support from the spirit world, the excitement from the goddesses that I work with in the spirit world, that this is the time and that we can move forward into this space, is just pouring out now. Interestingly enough, one of the things that surfaced, and as we move forward, we start to look at more and more layers of this. And I've really explored over the past few weeks some of the the concepts of this harmonic balance and what's been happening here. One of the things that has come to the surface that I feel guided to speak to you about today is the misuse or the maladapted use of the feminine energy, the goddess energy, that has occurred. And I say maladaptive because I really believe that it was about adaptation. So when the alpha vibration took the lead in our societies, and so it became a male vibrationally dominated society, the female, the omega energy, adapted itself and created this undercurrent of maladaptive power. So what we see here, and each of us can look at this, whether we're male or female in this lifetime, we are all that is. So we can all look within ourselves and find this. But what I have seen and what I've been looking at and exploring in my own world is a compassion for the fact, a compassion, and at the same time an intolerance. And I say intolerance not as in judging another, but as in holding my space and saying, this isn't okay anymore. We need to move to a love-based vibration of power. But to have compassion for people who have taken that the God, the omega. Let me keep it to omega because I really don't want this to be about males and females, though sometimes it plays itself out that way. The omega energy of love and emotion, and used that in a maladaptive way to gain power. So victimization is a very common theme that I would see as a maladaptive way of using that omega energy. Over caretaking and self-sacrifice, martyrship. Some of these are maladaptive energies of the omega energy trying to hold its power at a time when it was being suppressed. So we need to look within ourselves because it's none of our business what anyone else is doing. We can say, oh, I see that in someone else, but really everyone else is a mirror for ourselves. So we need to turn it back to ourselves and really be accountable. Whether we're male or female, we really need to be accountable to see if we have adapted ourselves to use the beautiful vibration of love and the spectrum of emotion in a way to manipulate or to gain power, and then make a commitment. And this is why I say an intolerance really within ourselves to be accepting of those maladaptive and really harmful behaviors in our personal lives, and to be accountable then to say, I am going to align my mind and my heart, and I'm going to surrender into the highest good and really open my heart in a way of unconditional love in order to allow myself to live in harmony with others and be really accountable when I see myself using techniques of victimization or martyrship or gossip, any of those vibrations that sort of play myself off against another and compete with another rather than remembering the oneness of with all of us, and then shifting that back to the truth of ourselves, which is pure love in every moment. So I just want to take a moment now to say a prayer and to really shift. And it's not even so much the words that I say, but taking a moment now to shift my attention into that really heart-centered space for each one of you to rest in that as we move forward in this beautiful, beautiful time, and to remember that love is all that there is. And this is all that we need to focus our attention. All we need to do, and I even approached, I'm laughing now, even at myself, that I approached the whole concept of the God Center and the Goddess Center from a very linear thought pattern way. So I think that that's interesting. So let us rest now into the vibration of the heart as we surrender ourselves now with a prayer that we can use throughout our day to move back into that space of divine love, and know that in that space, all manifestations are instantaneous, and that there is pure love and pure joy for everyone in this space. Dear God, Goddess, Creator of all that is, Alpha, Omega, Enchanted One, Isis, Osiris, and Horus, Magdalene, and Yezu, two feathers, we give thanks for your presence. We surrender ourselves now into the Enchanted One, all that is, feeling the divine love flow through us from heaven to earth and back again. As we rest in the embrace of divine love, we open our hearts, placing our hands upon our hearts now. We allow ourselves to rest into the remembrance that we truly are taken care of, that all of our needs are met, that every person in our life is a pure and beautiful reflection of all that is, that we are perfect in this moment. Our health is perfect. Our finances are perfect. Our service is perfect, and our relationships are perfect. We return to the remembrance of this as we open our hearts. And in this moment, for all those who are willing and desirable, I see now and feel now the divine goddess energy in the form that is perfect for you, placing her hands upon your heart. As you feel the warmth of her love penetrate into the depth of your heart, allow yourself to surrender into the feeling, for it is the feeling that will link the mind and the heart together as one, bringing the God center into your every breath, bringing it into your everyday life, and allowing you to live from a space of love. We allow ourselves now to rest in this truth as we welcome to ourselves the images of all that we desire to create, the feelings that we desire to rest in our daily lives. And as we feel this, we hold it in the center of our creation energy, in our midsection, the womb of our creation now. We move our hands to that space, whether we're male or female. We allow the creation energy to flood within us as we smile upon each other and welcome the new phase of our world in which we live in harmony of mind and heart, God and Goddess on earth. And we give thanks. Amen. I'd like to thank each one of you for taking the time to not only listen to my words, but to open your heart and to remember that love is all that there is. And in truth, we have both within us the Alpha and the Omega energy. We reflect this in perfect harmony. We move into a place of peace on our earth that will allow us the joy and the passion of co-creating a world together that is beyond the world rules of the past, creating rules of the present, rules of supported guidance, rules of open-mindedness, of open-heartedness, in which we each learn to know ourselves and our truth and to embrace our truth. For to know ourselves and to choose for ourselves in the highest form is the greatest gift that we can give to others. And so we give thanks. I ask that you have an amazing week. I thank you for joining me.